Hello and welcome to Obscure History. Today we will be diving into the abrupt end of the once powerful Macedonian kingdom, which had been ruled by the likes of both Philip II and his son Alexander the Great. To help illustrate this, I am thrilled to be sharing with you an ancient coin from my personal collection. So without further ado, let us begin. Before we arrive at the star of this video, it is worth giving a quick summary of events which led to the kingdom's downfall. By 168 BC, Perseus, the king of Macedon, had spent the last 11 years rebuilding his kingdom's fortunes through military might and diplomatic means. However, his father, Philip V, had already suffered defeat at the hands of Rome in the First and Second Macedonian Wars, leaving the kingdom in a fragile state. Perhaps knowing his neighbours would likely take advantage of the situation, Perseus often chose to make the first move with great energy. He sent many letters and delegations to the various Greek states in hopes to create and maintain friendly ties, which proved to be on the whole successful. He also largely succeeded militarily by reasserting Macedonian control over territories in Thrace and Illyria. This all happened despite the active treaty with Rome prohibiting him from making war without their say-so. The former of which was in reaction to an invasion by the Thracians, which devastated Macedonian territory as far as the city of Amphipolis, one of the largest cities of the kingdom. The Thracians also overran the gold and silver mines at the nearby Pangion mountain range. These materials played a critical role in the kingdom's economy, as the coins produced from those metals allowed for trade and payment of the army to take place. Perseus was well within his rights to see this invasion off and retaliate, crossing into Thracian territory. But these same tribes who attacked him were allied to Rome, which, as you could imagine, helped contribute to rising tensions between the two powers. Perseus knew it was only a matter of time before Rome came knocking on his kingdom's door once more. And sure enough, the Third Macedonian War broke out in 171 BC, after he was implicated in the attempted assassination of King Eumenes II of Pergamon, a bitter rival of his and a staunch ally of Rome's. After some initial success in the war's earlier years, he was ultimately defeated following the Battle of Pydna in 168 BC. The king managed to escape at first, but was eventually caught and brought in chains before the Romans, where he and his sons were taken back to Rome. They were then publicly paraded through the streets of the capital, in the preceding triumph of the victors, and Perseus spent the last few years of his life in miserable captivity. The latest Roman victory over Macedon finally brought an end to the Antigonid dynasty, which had held on to the kingdom on and off from 294 BC. The kingship was made defunct by the Romans, and in its place was a carved-up carcass of what had once been the proud homeland of Philip II and Alexander the Great. Going into 167 BC, the kingdom was officially divided into 4 separate entities called merides in Latin, which translates to divisions or regions. To ensure that authority was never concentrated into the hands of any individual, each meris was governed by a counseling body which was made up of men who were unquestionably aligned with Rome's interests. We will touch on other points regarding how this meris system worked as we go through and analyze the centerpiece of this video. And here it is. This silver tetradrachm, minted between 167 and 148 BC, weighs just under 17 grams. On the obverse, we have this wonderful bust of Artemis, the goddess of the hunt, depicted with a bow and quiver slung over her shoulder. Normally, coins such as this would have the bead border, that is, the circle going around the central image right on the outside, but at a diameter of 32 millimeters. The coin engravers really wanted to push the available space to its absolute limit. Around the outside is a Macedonian style shield design that would not have been out of place on the shields of the very men serving in the army. As you can see, not even this substantial flan was big enough to capture the shield design in its entirety, and it is very common for coins of this type to look something similar to this. These coins are convex in shape due to the way they were struck, making them appear like miniature shields. I have personally wanted one of these for a long time throughout my collecting journey, and so I am happy to say this was my first coin purchase going into 2025. Now it's time to check out the reverse of this coin, which is just as busy. To start with, we have the Club of Heracles in the middle, and surrounding the whole design is an oak wreath. To the left is a thunderbolt symbolizing Zeus, the king of the gods. The Greek legends on display reads Macedonon protes, which translates to of the Macedonians of the first district. This, with the AP monogram at the top, tells us that this coin was minted at Amphipolis, which was the capital of the first region. As mentioned earlier, the city of Amphipolis, originally an Athenian colony, was an important trading hub and one of the main cities within the kingdom since its capture by Philip II in 357 BC. The area around it was abundant in timber, which was vital in the construction of ships, which helps to explain why Athens originally set up shop there, as they were the premier naval power throughout classical antiquity. The site was located next to the Strymon River, which combined with the very mountainous terrain made Amphipolis a formidable defensive position, which could better protect the heartland of Macedon to the west from raiders. Speaking of mountains, we already know that the Pangaeon mountain range was rich in gold and silver and was minted extensively from the time of Philip II. A lot of these raw metals naturally made their way to nearby Amphipolis, which had been one of the main minting cities for the Macedonians. Now divided into 4 separate republics, Amphipolis was the natural choice to make as the first region's capital. In fact, most coins of this type and time period are from the first district and from this city. Only a few silver coins have been found minted by the second district with its capital based at Thessaloniki. From what we can gather, the fourth district, with its capital of Herakleia only produced bronze coins. No known coins have been found to have been minted at the third district, with its base at the old capital of Pella. This helps explain why these coins from Amphipolis are so prevalent today, as this district would have had a monopoly on the silver and could not export it to the other areas of the former kingdom. Also, what was left of the now heavily divided Macedonian army could not actively campaign, unless it was in the defence of the Merides. This greatly weakened the area's ability to project strength and allowed a greater increase in raids by the likes of the Illyrian and Thracian tribes. Going back to the coin itself, It may look like just another pretty piece of metal, and whilst it certainly pleases the eye, we must remember that coins were used as a propaganda tool, much like today, designed to push certain messages from the minting authority. Knowing the subtle hidden meanings behind what we are looking at will reveal that this coin type is a clear transitional piece between the days of the kingdom and a region that was being absorbed into Rome's sphere of influence. Take the obverse side, for example. The shield pattern found was an innovation introduced by Perseus's great-grandfather, Antigonus II Gonatus, who often paired it with the god Pan in the center of the design. Perseus's father, Philip V, also utilized the Macedonian shield pattern, with the central image being that of the mythical demigod Perseus, with some of them even making use of that king's likeness dressed as the hero. For this version of the type, it seems appropriate to use Artemis as the central figure. For starters, Amphipolis was known to hold the goddess in high reverence throughout the daily lives of the people living there. It is said that there were plans to construct a temple dedicated to her within the city, but the untimely death of Alexander the Great ensured that this was never to be. Whilst doing the research for this video, I came across the story of Artemis receiving her hunting dogs from Pan, whom we have already touched on. Both deities have a deep connection to the wild and untamable. Pan was used very much in the same way as Artemis to link the Macedonians' identity closely with that of nature. I also do not think it coincidental there is a clear link between our Artemis and the Pan used on the coinage by one of the old kings of Macedon. These coins were, of course, made under Roman supervision, but this would have been a great subtle workaround to foster a sense of continuity and pride, which links to the dismantled kingdom. It does make me wonder how many people living back then would have looked at this and had similar thoughts. It is fascinating to think that placing Artemis on these coins, a goddess tied to Macedonian identity and independence, might have been a subtle nod to the past, perhaps even a quiet form of resistance, in a time when the Romans sought stability and control in the region. The symbolic meanings on the coin's reverse are just as subtle and even more explicit. Like with the obverse, there are elements of the design which would not have been out of place during the days kings reigned. The oak reef and club are features that can be found on the coins of Philip V and Perseus. The club of Heracles reminds us that the Macedonian kings claimed their dynasty's foundations and legitimacy to the demigod, and the thunderbolt is there to represent Heracles' father, Zeus, who they also claim descent from. I would say the main change here are the legends themselves. Normally reserved for the king's name, the Romans decided that this part of the coin's design had to be more functional. The very word protes in Greek, translated to meris or district, is a clear reminder to the Macedonians that they were no longer a united kingdom. It also seemed an efficient way to create further distance between the artificially created districts. As these coins were circulated very frequently, it must have hammered home the new political reality into everyday transactions. Putting the two words together, Rome was acknowledging Macedonian heritage, but reminded the people that this heritage now existed within the context of Roman rule. The statement was blunt. Macedon's past is honoured, but its future belonged to Rome. So whilst this coin may look like just a piece of silver, it's much more. symbols of a divided kingdom transitioning into Roman dominance. The designs of Artemis, the oak wreath, and the shield bring us back to a time of Macedonian power, but the legends remind us that Macedon was no longer a unified kingdom. This tiny slither of history marks the end of an era, but also acts as a subtle form of resistance, preserving a sense of Macedonian pride under the shadow of Roman rule. Fascinating, isn't it, how a single coin can tell such a complex story? Rome's solution of nominal independence ultimately proved to be a failure. By 149 BC, a pretender named Andriscus, claiming to be the son of Perseus, used the festering anti-Roman sentiment of the lower classes to be proclaimed king as Philip VI. After a minor defeat, the Romans very quickly got their act together and launched another consular army into the region to put down this pseudo-Philip. They crushed the pretender only barely a year later, marking 148 as the end of this coin type being produced. Rome puts the final nail in the coffin by outright annexing the whole former kingdom of Macedon into the latest province of the Republic. Thanks for watching and joining me on this one, as it has certainly been fun to make. If you've enjoyed what has been covered in the video, why not leave a like and a comment, or subscribe to see more fascinating stories from history. So until next time, this has been Obscure History.